Namaste, welcome back to UD's quickest movie reviews. This is me, Udai. As always, we are back with some wonderful filmmakers and their works that we are going to review and rate in our show. Further any ado, I want you to hit the subscribe and the bell icon so that you can get all the updates as we do our shows. Now let's start today's episode. The next movie on our review show is Niramatra. The Nimratra is a Tamil message-oriented psychological comedy hosted on Young Brothers Productions, a YouTube channel. The movie basically is about this young, lazy guy who doesn't take his life seriously. He never takes any commitment seriously and always screws up with every single person around him. And on this particular day, where he was supposed to meet his friend to complete a project, he falls asleep and makes a total mess. And when he goes to apologize, his friend says that he had no hope with him and he doesn't want to see his face, and gets angry, shuts the door on his face. And this makes our protagonist very sad and disappointed. He comes back home, he locks the door. And later in the evening, when all the friends meet, they start discussing about this other guy who has committed suicide for some silly reasons. And that is when they start recalling the whole day and they understand their friend is missing. They run back to his room. They try to open this door, but then it's all locked and there is no answer from the other end of the door. What did this boy do to himself? Well, his friends save him. How will the film end? What is that one message that makers want to give us? The film really ends with a message. Coming to the technical part, director Dhevindran did really had a great point. However, because of the loose screenplay and a screen time of 15 minutes 8 seconds, the film looks too lengthy and damn slow when it comes to the visuality. The dialogues were really dramatic and the timing was not really worked out with. I mean, when you are doing a comedy, the least you have to concentrate on is the dialogue and its time. Coming to the camera, DOP Mr. Devarajan did a decent job. Most of the times camera was handheld, and as it was completely monochromized or black and white, desaturated, there was nothing much that I could, observe or take a notes about. And coming to the editing, Mr. Kevin, who is the editor of the film, I'm not sure why he used a dramatic desaturated color tone, because it was supposed to be a comedy. I understand the intensity is what you wanted to give it. I understand the subjective was very serious, though the narration of the film was comedy. I don't know how much it helped you to gain that seriousness or the intensity of the film, where your movie was supposed to be a comedy. You were trying to make a bit sarcasm about the depression or the suicidal tendencies, but then when you yourself are forcing your audience towards being serious, why would you make a comedy? How will the comedy work, first of all? So somewhere I saw there was a bit of confusion whether your movie should be a comedy or you wanted it to be very serious A darkish comedy which was not your point. A dark comedy will never work out when you are giving a message. Dark comedy only works when you are showing the truth and ugliness of the subjective, where your subjective was not supposed to be exactly the ugliness of society or ugliness of the point. So there I was missing a point. The transactions were good. The music again was in the same context of confusing your audience, whether it is a comedy or a serious film. BGM really took your movie to the other side of the comedy, which was not at all working out what your intentions were. If you wanted to make this comedy film, then it never worked out. However, I would say this is a decent attempt, but then I suggest the whole team to work a bit hard on your technicalities, on your script, and taking decision about the genre of the script. Which genre do you really expect your audience to enjoy this film in? Should be very clear in your minds. Only then your screenplay will flow according to the ideology what you had. I'm sure they will update all these things in the upcoming movies. And with that, at UD's quickest movie reviews, we rate Niramatra a 3-star in action. All the best. So after all the emotional, psychological, message oriented patriotism, we thought we'll add some love to the show. So the next movie that we are going to review is a love story, and the name of this love story is Akshara. Akshara is a Telugu short love story that is hosted on Crazy Kalalu, a YouTube channel. The film basically is about this young person who is suffering from genetic Alzheimer's. Genetic Alzheimer's is a disease, a genetic disease, where he can only remember 30 minutes of his life. The guy with this disease falls in love with this girl who he just saw in a temple. He is so much in love with this girl and still remembers that he is going to forget her in next 30 minutes. He starts following her. He makes a road map of her house and keeps it with him. And in order not to forget her, he quickly goes back home and he starts writing her name in a diary just to stay awake the whole night and not to forget her. He starts writing it. Her name is Akshara. As he writes her name, he falls asleep. And when he wakes up the next morning, as we all know, he would have forget every single thing about yesterday. But then, when he looks at this diary, he finds this name, Akshar. And he also has that particular roadmap that he drew. He understands that there is something that he left himself all these hints for. So he follows that map. He goes to that place. Unfortunately, he finds nothing there. Now, question is, will he ever get this girl? Or even when he goes, finds this girl, what is he going to tell her? How will this love story even start? And even if it starts, how exactly is this going to end? Will this girl ever accept him with this disease? All these things will be cleared at the end of the film. Coming to the technical part of the film. Direction by Mr. Harish Chava, the film was supposed to be a very cute love story. But frankly, like many other love stories, I felt Akshara was also missing the logic. And with the screen time of 10 minutes 39 seconds, I see The makers had huge lot of time to establish a lot of things like why, how, and what made this guy fall in love with her. A bit more about Akshara and her characterization could have really helped this movie in becoming that cute love story that we all felt when I saw that poster. Unfortunately, there was no detail about Akshara's characterization or the character sketch, which again gets us to the point when I am suffering from genetic Alzheimer's, on which point will I bank to fall in love with this girl? So, as the movie passes on, as the movie goes towards the end, weird, logicless points come up which are technically impossible in real life. Frankly speaking, screenplay was not really gripping at all. There was no point where I could relate to the screenplay because everything was like supernatural. They had no logic. Why it is happening? No logic. Why exactly that particular scene imposes towards their love or breakup or whatever it is had no logic whatsoever. As I see, the complete movie is a voiceover, and every single word they have mentioned in the movie was completely poetic. It had no proper reason why they use such great poetry. In maybe when he described this girl or his own situation, everything is poetic. I appreciate that in a barrier of language, but then does your movie really require such poetic, unrealistic dialogue to express his love? Is my, again, it is my personal understanding that not every lover should or must be a poet. Frankly, every 10 short films that a Telugu filmmaker does, 8 movies will be a love story. When you're competing with such huge numbers, I think your love story should always have that unique selling point. And you actually had your unique selling point, that is genetic Alzheimer's. I see you were not using it to the potential you had to use. This happens when you did not do your homework on that particular disease or that particular conflict in your script. Coming to the camera, DOP Mr. Prince Ajay Gurram did a fabulous job. I really enjoyed every single frame of this film. Though I must admit that Ajay did a great job in capturing the frames of whites, but when it comes to close ups, I was expecting more close ups of this female, that heroine. I thought he would have given more beauty shots of this heroine. I see somewhere they chose not to, you know, put the focus on beauty of the frames. They were like always on the wide, always on the wide. They were trying to capture more of this hero who was suffering, who was not exactly that point of interest when you talk about love stories, because he himself has to be mesmerized by the beauty of this woman, which is not happening because there was no other point why would he fall in love with this girl other than her beauty, as he only remembers 30 minutes of his life. And what is his sole point of banking his love is girl herself. You're not showing any character of that girl, and what is left is her beauty. You chose not to show her beauty, you chose not to show her characteristic, then why exactly will a guy fall in love with this girl is a question which you never answered. However, I must say there were there was a lot of scope for camera to experiment with. I expected more focus shifts. I expected a lot of trolley shots. I expected a lot of close-ups, which didn't happen. Coming to editing, Ashok K. Kumar really did a wonderful job. Nice cuts, nice transitions. I must specially appreciate him for the color. The way he played with teal and orange was really impressive. I think he could have used a bit more uh, unique transactions, but whatever he did was really good. To conclude, this is a very nice technical movie with a little bit of more concentration on the script. I'm sure this would have made a really cute love story. But when it comes to the team effort, I really appreciate each one of them. They did really a great job. I'm sure they're going to work more on their scripts and give us much better love story next time. Till then, at UD's quickest movie reviews, we rate Akshara a 2 star in our show. All the best. The next love story that we are going to talk about is Kadhal Kanitham. Kadhal Kanitham is a Tamil love story that is hosted on KM Production Shankar N in YouTube channel. The movie basically is about this girl who is madly in love with this guy who she met. And the guy is totally principled and really is a very serious kind of person who doesn't really believe in love at first sight or love itself. And the guy says if at all she wants to marry him, the only way she can do is by convincing parents. Now questions are, will she convince her parents? What will she do to convince them? How will this love story end? Is the gist of the film. Coming to the technical part, written and directed by Mr. Shankar N. Kadhal Kanitham, is a love story with a nice message. However, with a very dramatic screenplay and lack of chemistry between the actors, makes this 10 minutes 25 seconds short a very lagging visual to watch. When it comes to acting, hero and heroine had absolutely no chemistry whatsoever, which was required for the films like this. Frankly, I felt the male lead was constantly frustrated, and at a point of time, I even thought that this male had some kind of secret and he's trying to run away from this girl. The film gives altogether a different prospect of whatever I understood. But even after seeing the prospect, I still had a point where I felt like there is something that this guy is hiding. Because even after everything is done, the guy still continues with the same emotion, the same frustration throughout the movie. Towards the end, I realized that somehow the makers wanted this female to look bubbly and childish kind of lively character, which was not really going natural. Again, till pre-climax I felt the female was very natural, very expressions were too good, they were very smooth, and suddenly at the end you take her to the peak of bubbliness and naughtiness, which really didn't work out well, because on the other side, your hero is completely serious, frustrated, angry, and look did not really balance frame well. Coming to the camera of the film, Mr. Preetham did a really great job in handling the camera. I really love the frames he has given us. They were very smooth zooms. They were very smooth movements. They were very clear images, which really make this film interesting to watch. An interesting frame to watch. We should always appreciate the editor for making it that presentable. So, so I appreciate Mr. Maran, who is the editor of the film, who really made this film really very smooth, very pleasant. You feel like you are sitting next to these girls, and you feel like you are sitting next to this couple watching them. I really love the transactions, the work is done is marvelous. So at the end of the day, I say you had a great thought, you had a great technicality, but then you should have let your audience enjoy it rather than push them hard to see what you think you have made. With that, we rate KADHAL KANITHAM a 3-star in our show. All the best. The next movie in our show is Shakeela. Shakila is a very emotional and very pleasant movie that is hosted on Team Django Space YouTube channel. If you got that cute smile when I said Shakila, then I'm sure this movie is all about that cute smile you had. The movie is all about this young beautiful girl who is not getting married. The problem with her getting married is that her name is Shakeela. To all those who doesn't understand what is the problem with having a name Shakeela, let me give her a small introduction. Shakeela is a B-grade actress back in 90s where porn was not as common as these days. Coming back to our story, even when the whole village comments on this girl's name and all the guys from the village give that awkward look to this girl, she doesn't want to change her name. That has two reasons. One, the name is given to Shakeela by her late mother, and she doesn't want to change it because that is given by her mother, and she knows that her parents loved that name. Number two, she thinks that is her individuality. It's not only a name; it is her individuality. If she changes it for someone else, she feels that she is losing her identity. Now, will she ever change the name? Will she ever get married? What will be the end of this film? It is really very heart touching to see such inspirational climax, and the way they have narrated the movie is really mind blowing and heart touching. Now let's talk about the technicality of the film. Story, screenplay, dialogues by Mr. Amal K. Joby, direction by Mr. Sugeesh. Shakeela is a very plain, heart-touching and eye-opening concept. It is very well written and wonderfully directed. When you talk about camera, cinematography is done by Mr. Shiju M. Bhaskar. Really enhance the feeling of the film. A very wonderful feeling when you see a proper light is done in a short film. It is very rare though, but then this film is one of those rare films which has engineered its light to the maximum level possible. When you talk about light, I think this film is one of my favorite films that I really fall in love with the lighting of the film. It really had that essence of light, that sense of darkness, the play with the shadows. I think it has got every single aspect that a cinematographer or the gaffer dies to get on film. Editing done by Mr. Hisham Yusuf is really decent. The cuts he has given are really good. Transactions are really seamless. However, I felt the color could be a bit more vibrant. because we are talking about Kerala. I think you could have added a little bit more of, proper temperature or greens. I think that would have enhanced it better. Whatever you did was optimal. I really enjoyed watching this. The film ended with a great message. I really appreciate the whole team for making such a visual, pleasant movie for your audience. I appreciate the whole team, the assistant directors, the writers who thought of this thing. This is completely a teamwork. When you appreciate an actor, you are appreciating a person who writes that character, a person who narrates that particular line to them. You appreciate the makeup artist, you appreciate the light gaffers, the camera person, not to mention the actors themselves. So when an actor is appreciated, all these people in group gets the credit. So with that note, here in UD's quickest movies, we appreciate every single actor and the team member of this team. Wishing him all the best, we rate Shakeela a 4.5 star in our. All the best, guys. And that brings us to the end of the show, guys. Before we end our show, I would love to thank Mr. Venkatesh, who is our special reviewer of the day, who gives his valuable suggestions, who gives his views and ratings to all our films and make this show what it is. Until we meet next time, I want you to hit that subscribe and bell icon to be in the loop. So chalo then, till we meet next time, this is Udai signing off. Namaste.